I want to thank everyone for being here today. It's actually a very exciting day for us. We're here to announce indictments against a major drug trafficking ring operating in South Carolina and Georgia. This is a multi-jurisdictional, multi-agency effort, and we're here today to talk about that. A couple of years ago, local law enforcement agencies in the upstate were conducting drug buying operations, and during their investigation, found out that federal law enforcement agencies were conducting, or from a different aspect, were looking into some of the same people that they were investigating. This led to kind of a joint operation in which all of us got together, working through the South Carolina State Grand Jury and the Attorney General's office, as well as local, state, and federal partners in South Carolina and up at the federal level, started working together to conduct an expansive investigation into this drug trafficking ring. For obvious reasons, because this is an ongoing investigation, we can't talk about the details of how the investigation was carried out, but I can say that we have aggressively used every tool at our disposal to get these drugs and these drug dealers off our streets here in South Carolina. Now, before I go into any of the facts, I want to go ahead and state unequivocally, make sure I put this disclaimer out here, that all defendants in this case are presumed innocent unless and until convicted by a court of law. With that being said, typically, drugs come across the United States southern border and are then transported to Atlanta, Georgia, which is the major drug hub for the southeast region of the United States. From there, they often come in to South Carolina. The investigation in this particular case centers around a restaurant operating in the upstate, which acted as somewhat as a regional hub in the upstate of South Carolina. The restaurant is called Los Primos, which was located actually near an elementary school. The restaurant served not only food, but served as the regional hub in which cocaine and methamphetamine were allegedly trafficked throughout South Carolina and other states in our region. Restaurant owners also allegedly operated taco trucks, which they used to sell their drugs in that area. The results thus far of this ongoing investigation have resulted in 124 charges against 34 defendants. From this investigation, we have seized almost 11 kilos of methamphetamine. 11 kilos has a street value, we're estimating, of approximately $825,000. 584 grams of cocaine were seized with a street value of approximately $70,000. They seized around $63,000 in cash and over 20 firearms. The investigation revealed that historically, and we learned this, that historically through this drug trafficking operation, we accounted for over 1,000 kilos of methamphetamine being trafficked here in South Carolina. That has a street value of over $75 million. We also discovered, historically accounting for in this investigation, that 100 kilos of cocaine with a street value of over $12 million were trafficked in South Carolina. 2 kilos of heroin through this drug operating ring with a street value of over $200,000. These drugs historically had been trafficked throughout the state of South Carolina. Now, the investigation that we did in this state actually led to seizures in Atlanta, Georgia. Raids in stash houses in Atlanta led to approximately 200 kilos of methamphetamine, that's a $15 million street value, being seized, along with 3.5 kilos of cocaine. Put that in street value terms, over $400,000. 3.2 kilos of heroin with over a $300,000 value on the street. 5 ounces of cocaine mixed with fentanyl. Now let me say this again. 5 ounces of cocaine mixed with fentanyl. Now we all know what's going on around this country, and it's bad enough when people are dealing in cocaine, but fentanyl is a deadly poison. And for those people out there who use drugs recreationally, don't always assume that what you're getting isn't going to be laced with something that can kill you. So that is another thing that was very concerning to us. 183 pounds of marijuana were seized over in that Atlanta stash house. 900 Xanax pills and multiple firearms. So it is a very robust operation that bled over into the state of Georgia. A large portion of those drugs were allegedly intended to be trafficked over here in South Carolina. Now, I've talked about the multi-jurisdictional nature of this, the number of agencies involved, and you can see there's a lot of folks standing up here with me. Excuse me. I want to say thank you to them. I'm standing up here today to kind of give you an overview, but this investigation would not be where it is today if it wasn't for a number of people. Let me go ahead. I always do my team last, and I'm always worried that I'm going to forget them. But the case was obviously conducted through the state grand jury. Our lead attorney in there is Creighton Waters, assisted by John Conrad. There are other staff who aren't standing up here, but they were very involved. My good friend and colleague and partner, the chief of the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, Chief Mark Keel, who is either standing right behind me over my shoulder, where he usually is. He was assisted by his agent, Lieutenant Tyrell Woodring, was a leader in this effort. And also, Chief, I want to take a moment to talk about the SLED narcotics agents that work at SLED in that unit. They're not being listed. We're not saying their names. You don't see their faces, but they are always there. They are heroes. Chief, I can't tell you enough how much my team brags on your agents and their efforts in busting up these type of drug trafficking rings. And I wanted to give a shout out to the SLED narcotics unit for their efforts. Again, we can't recognize them for obvious reasons. I want to say thank you to my good friend Walt Wilkins. He is here representing the 13th Judicial Circuit and the Solicitor's Office. And Solicitor Wilkins, standing next to Chief Keel. You'll hear from him momentarily. He was very instrumental in working to set up the Greenville County Multi-Jurisdictional Drug Enforcement Unit, I'll call it DEU for short. But they are here today. Captain Johnny Westmoreland and Lieutenant Shannon Pillar lead that unit, and them, along with the leadership of Solicitor Wilkins, obviously play an instrumental role in this investigation, and I want to thank them. And this is somewhat of a novel unit, and I know you'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, and we appreciate that. United States Homeland Security Investigations is here today, and they are represented by Resident Agent in Charge Russell Lindstad and Deputy Special Agent in Charge Mike Prado. You're going to hear from Deputy Special Agent in Charge Prado here momentarily. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Rick Clark couldn't be here, but Captain Chuck James and Lieutenant Brett Barwick are representing that department. The Anderson County Sheriff's Office, again, Sheriff Chad McBride could not be here, but Agent John Velez is representing that Sheriff's Department. The Spartanburg County Sheriff's Department, and again, my good friend Chuck Wright couldn't be here, but they are represented here today and were involved in that investigation. The Greenville County Sheriff's Office was obviously involved in this investigation. Sheriff Lewis is not here, but he sent Major Mike Moore, who has represented us today. So thank you for being here. The Easley Police Department, Chief Stan Witten is here, Agent Tim Sargent, and Agent Bryant Gibson. And of course, the South Carolina National Guard Counter-Drug Task Force. It's a long list of people to say thank you. But again, every single agency and entity had their hand on this investigation, and the amount of drugs and the amount of people we have taken off the streets could not have happened without all of their involvement. At this time, we're going to hear from three people. I want to invite Chief Mark Keel, the Chief of SLED, to come up here, just say a few brief remarks, and then he will be followed by Solicitor Walt Wilkins, and then finally by Deputy Special Agent in Charge Mike Prado with HSI, and then we will conclude. Chief Keel.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say a couple of things very briefly. We have a significant violent crime problem here in our state. Much of the violent crime that we see in South Carolina is connected in some way related to drugs. And that's the reason for the efforts that we have, is to try and stop this gun violence and some of the violent crime that is connected to drug trafficking in South Carolina. And secondly, I just want to say that one of the things that we always talk about here and talk about at SLED is developing partnerships. Partnerships and efforts like this is what makes these efforts successful. We have to have our relationships with our cities, counties, our federal partners, and when we put all of our efforts together, we don't worry about who gets credit for it. We just go out and do the job. That's when we have the most success. And this is the kind of success that we want to keep having. We want to continue these relationships, continue the partnerships that we have with state, local, and our federal partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. I'm Solicitor Walt Wilkins, and I'm the Solicitor of Greenville and Pickens counties, and it's surely my pleasure to be here today. I want to thank all of these individuals standing here with me, the law enforcement efforts that everyone did to attack this major drug trafficking ring was anything but unbelievable. As the chief prosecutor in those two counties, along with law enforcement, we've recognized the difference in taking on drug traffickers as opposed to 10 years ago. And it's changed to the fact that it is much more significant. There's much more volume flowing into our communities. It's much more organized, as seen in this case. Thousands of kilos of methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine were pumping into Greenville County and the surrounding areas. And it took all resources and every tool at our disposal to take on these organized drug traffickers. Selling it out of restaurants and taco trucks was just one way in which they were delivering this poison into our communities. As a result, we've had to get better, smarter, and more organized. And one of the ways that we did that was in the upstate, we established the Drug Enforcement Unit, where we're bringing all law enforcement together under one roof to attack mid to high level drug organizations. So cities, county sheriff's deputies, SLED, federal partners are all coming together continuously to take on these individuals and attack these drug dealers. And it's something that's the story that should be told today, is that the amount of drugs flowing into our country and into our communities is at the highest level that I've ever seen it. And I've been doing this for over 15 years. And this is what we are doing to combat that. And so the message that I want to send, that those that are out there that decide that they want to traffic drugs and they want to come to our communities and pump this poison in our communities, we're here, we're getting organized, and we're going to take on every single one and hold them all accountable at some point in time in a court of law. Thank y'all.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mike Prado, Deputy Special Agent in Charge, Homeland Security Investigations out of Charlotte, with oversight over our offices here in South Carolina as well. And just a pleasure to be here today with all of my colleagues. This is a major win, not just for the agencies represented up here, but really a major win for the people of South Carolina. As Attorney General Wilson mentioned, the amount of narcotics that have been taken off the street, the amount of guns that have been taken off the street, the amount of money taken away from these organizations will deal a significant blow to the transnational criminal organizations that are, quite frankly, operating right here in South Carolina and in the upstate and using the I-85 as a pipeline. It's our mission at Homeland Security Investigations to cut off that pipeline, utilize our global presence, our transnational criminal investigative authority to assist our local and state partners in any way we can, whether that's through resources, personnel, or manpower, or personnel and manpower, and any other tools at our disposal to assist in any way we can. In the abstract, obviously, we're going through a major epidemic of drug trafficking, drug overdoses throughout the country, but here locally, I think we've dealt a major blow to a organization that has direct ties to Mexican drug cartels. That's where HSI can come in with our partners at SLED, with our partners at the task force level, and really work in cooperation together. So it's a pleasure. We're going to continue to do this. This is the beginning and not the end of these cooperative arrangements, and we look forward to more successes. Thank you.
Thank you, Agent Prado. Appreciate that. Again, when it comes to drug trafficking, especially when you're dealing with cartels in Mexico, every state's a border state, and South Carolina is no different. And so, again, with our federal and our state and our local partners, I want to say thank you again, because without their efforts, we wouldn't be here today. I want to close by saying this. Last year, working with many of the same people that are standing up here today or representing agencies that were involved, the state grand jury was involved with the Prison Empire case, which involved, that's where meth was allegedly trafficked by prison inmates or prison leaders with contraband cell phones. And that resulted in the indictment of 487 charges against over 100 defendants. That was basically pouring into our state. That investigation led to the seizure of as much as 20 kilos of meth, 5 kilos of heroin, 1.5 kilos of cocaine, and 82 firearms from that investigation alone. In addition, we learned that over 1,000 kilos of meth, historically speaking, wasn't seized at that time, historically had been trafficked through the state of South Carolina. We learned that from that one investigation. Then there was the rocket fuel, again, state grand jury case in partnership with SLED and some of our agencies up here. That was a case that involved ganged meth being trafficked throughout Atlanta into South Carolina, into the upstate. That involved 81 charges against 26 defendants. And historically, we learned that investigation that over 680 kilos or 1,500 pounds of meth were brought into South Carolina. In that case, cocaine, 5 kilos of meth and 8 ounces of heroin were also seized. And again, many of the people up here today were involved in those cases as well. So this is 3 cases in the last year and a half that hundreds of millions of dollars were in contraband have either been seized or stopped from coming into the state of South Carolina, and I want to thank them again. All right, this concludes my remarks. I want to say thank you for covering this, and again, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Sir, are you able to tell us a timeline, kind of when this investigation started at Los Primos?
Who wants to take that? Creighton, do you want to? I'll let Creighton Waters runs our prosecution unit in the state grand jury section.
Some of the initial buys that happen, and this is the way a lot of these start. They started at the local level. They started with buys and that sort of thing that are being conducted, investigations that are conducted. Some of that goes back as far as 2018 and 2019. It is common for law enforcement agencies to, as they develop information that they're pursuing, to check with other law enforcement agencies in the area to see if they have something similar. Connections were made, and then what you see came from that as the result of this, and that's all these agencies coming together. We want to give a special thanks to HSI, who really provided a lot of resources and manpower to help augment the state and local resources in getting this done. But it's been going on for a while. The amalgamation of all these agencies functioning together has really been going on since the fall of 2021.
Are you able to say kind of what initially tipped off investigators to this specific location a couple years back?
Well, as Chief Keel said, dope leads to violence. Dope leads to property crime. Dope leads to other things that you see in society. And so many instances you have local law enforcement, you have Solicitor Wilkins Greenville DEU, which was one of the early agencies on this particular matter, and they're detecting crime in their communities, and they start to look at the sources of that. And one of the things that things like this, that task forces like this do, is instead of handling each case where you might have some dope seized in a traffic stop or from a search warrant, instead of handling those as just one-offs, what these task forces attempt to do is figure out how are all these things related. How is that property crime? How is this sale? How is this traffic stop? How is this search warrant? How are they all related? Let's figure out how they're related, and more importantly, let's figure out who is the leadership, who's at the center of this, and that's who we need to put a stop to.
And Solicitor Wilkins already touched on this a little bit, but kind of a question for you, Mr. Wilson, too. What kind of warning does this send for people allegedly participating in this kind of activity in other parts of the state?
Well, my hope is it'll have a deterrent effect, but I think the message we're trying to send is if you engage in this illicit type of activity, drug trafficking, you're going to eventually get busted, and we're going to put you away. And there's an army of men and women out there in various agencies at all levels of government that are going to be looking for you, and if they haven't already found you. To what Creighton was said, oftentimes these cases, I like to use analogies. You ever gone out to your yard and pulled a weed, and that weed turns into a root, and you start pulling the root, and next thing you know, halfway across the yard, it's attached to an underground stump, a root system. Oftentimes, a major drug trafficking ring starts with, boots on the ground law enforcement officers doing small drug buys, and they start pulling the thread, and it just leads to something much, much bigger. And then you find out that there's other agencies on the other side of the state or on the other side of the ring looking at other people involved. And when you start sharing information and collaborating and working, sharing resources, you're able to go to the actual heart of it, the actual cause of it, not attack the symptom, but attack the cause of the ring. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Can you all speak to us about how something like this perpetuates the amount of overdose deaths that we've even seen really in the past year?
Well, I can tell you anecdotally, I talked about this earlier. I'm really concerned about the fentanyl issue. Of course, I've talked to a number of people in South Carolina who've had loved ones who were taking pain medications laced with fentanyl and died at the smallest amounts. That is something that concerns me. And obviously, I go back to what Chief Keel was talking about. A lot of these drugs at the user level, it's someone recreationally using a drug, and then they get addicted, and of course, the addiction leads to ways to pay for the drug, which leads to property crimes, which leads to violent crimes, and not just with the end user, but with the people selling the drug and facilitating the sale of the drug. And so it really does kind of spread out like a web of crime and some light on our community. And again, at the beginning of my remarks, I want to remind everyone that the restaurant that was the regional hub for all of this drug trafficking going on was right up the street from an elementary school where children are going. And so the type of violent activity and illicit activity that goes to drug trafficking is literally right up the road from an elementary school where our children are going, where people's kids are going. And so it's really scary to me. And I'm sure these folks could probably tell you far more horror stories that if we don't start aggressively doing or if we don't continue to do what we're doing, it's only going to proliferate. And so that's why, back to the question that was asked over here, is that we hope that this will be have a deterrent effect. This is an ongoing investigation. We haven't finished our jobs yet, but this is a major milestone, and we want to recognize it to the public.
When you say it's a regional hub, could you put into perspective how the size of this operation compares or falls along the tree of command when it comes to these circles?
Well, obviously, Atlanta, Georgia is a major regional hub in the southeast region. But from what I've been told, the upstate area where this was actually happening had become its own regional hub. I mean, obviously, it led back to a bust of stash houses in Atlanta, Georgia, but the upstate, and last year we had another major grand jury sting, where, as I talked about earlier, where drugs are just pouring in over our border. And so the upstate has become a hub. When you look at the I-85 corridor from Charlotte to Atlanta, obviously it's an artery for this type of illicit activity. And I'm not saying it's not happening in other places in our state, and obviously it's happening in other states that border us. But, I don't know if, Mike, did you want to talk about addressing her question as to Atlanta as a ring or as a hub of...
Happy to. To answer your question, how this organization fits into the overall structure, that's still under overall investigation, but to A.G. Wilson's point, Atlanta is the major distribution hub. However, you can consider places like the upstate franchisees of a cartel, if you will, where they set up shop under the guise of, and under the direction and control in many times of major players in Atlanta, and more importantly, cartel leaders and members in Mexico who are directing the distribution and sale of these narcotics. So it's a major win overall, and taking off some major people who have significant transnational ties to these illicit organizations.
Have you tied it back to a specific cartel at this point?
Yes, we have. So the cartel that we believe is primarily involved in this is La Familia Michoacan, a well-known, very violent cartel that's operated for many years in Mexico.
Do you all expect more arrests to be made in this case, or do you think you've gotten all the alleged defendants for now?
This is an ongoing investigation. I don't want to mismanage expectations or project anything, but it is an ongoing investigation, and we're not going to stop until we've gotten to the conclusion.
A.G. Wilson, can you speak to your conviction rates? You talked about the past cases that you handled or the past arrests that you made. Can you speak to conviction rates when it comes to this type of...
On those two specific cases, they're pending trial right now. I mean, that's a lot of cases, a lot of defendants in between those two cases and now this case. So yeah, they have been indicted, and we are, I guess, docketed. I guess Creighton, if you want to talk about a timing.
Yeah, I mean, every case is different, and Prison Empire and Rocket Fuel just came out fairly recently, but generally, and it may take some time, but generally, state grand jury indictments end up with defendants being convicted close to 100% in the past few years. It does take time. We had one recently. This was in a case called Graceland. This individual was a prison leader who had been running meth as well, which is a very common thing. You've heard the refrain from many of the people up here about contraband cell phones and how so much of our gang activity, our narcotics activity, traces back to people who've already been in prison for the same thing. And why are they able to do it? Because they have unfortunate access to contraband cell phones. And we had one individual get 40 years consecutive on top of the 20-some-odd years that he's currently serving. We had another case here recently in Blue Magic. We were talking about fentanyl. and how deadly it is. In that particular case, what was being trafficked was fake oxycodone pills that were laced with fentanyl. And the problem with those is that people get used to thinking a pill is a pill is a pill, and it's all the same thing. But all it takes is for the bathroom chemist to put a little too much fentanyl, which is extremely potent, on a pill, and all the Narcan in the county can't save you. And so I liken it to playing Russian roulette. The reality is there's so much fentanyl out there on top of the methamphetamine and the cocaine, and it is being put in almost everything. And so anytime you take any illicit substance, you're really playing Russian roulette. It's as simple as that.
And could you explain the kind of the restaurants, just open, public-facing place in the community? I mean, was it a popular place to eat, or could you kind of explain how it managed to operate in the community in this way?
It's in a strip mall, and it was just a Mexican restaurant like any other. It's just that there was more you could get in the styrofoam clamshells than just burritos and tacos.
Have y'all been able to trace any particular aspect of this operation or drug trafficking to here in the Midlands area? I mean, how big of an impact have we seen here in the Midlands from this?
Well, I would say that when dope comes into South Carolina, I mean, inevitably somebody sells it to somebody and somebody sells it to somebody, and eventually, the effects of dope coming into South Carolina probably makes its way into almost every community throughout the state. But in this particular case, the immediate effect that we were able to see and the dope that was seized in this particular case was focused in the upstate. However, as you've heard, we do know from the investigation that it has an alleged effect beyond just the upstate, throughout South Carolina, and in fact through the region.
Thank you, Craig. All right. Okay, well, I want to thank all of you for playing your role, for telling the stories to our respective communities about what these folks are out there doing. Our work is not done, but we're going to continue to push on, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next one of these types of announcements, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. So thank you so much. Thank you all.